to Watchmen on the Pod. All right, we're going to pick back up in our book reading. Codeword Barbelon. Book 2, 666, Antichrist is a Woman Alive and Well Again by P.D. Stuart. We are in chapter 6. By these signs you shall know them, the builders. Go to, let us build a city and a tower, Babel, whose top may reach unto heaven. Genesis chapter 11, verse 4. Whoops, okay. But in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people. It shall break in pieces and consume all these nations, and it shall stand forever. Daniel chapter 2, verse 44. European Union drawing of its headquarters, the new Tower of Babel. 2009, Thursday, June 11th, to be exact, Charlie Rose of PBS interviewed the federal appellate judge and University of Chicago law lecturer Richard Posner about his book, A Failure of Capitalism. Reader, the title of this book alone was enough to send shivers up and down my spine. Why? Not because I'm a diehard capitalist, nor because I have any investments tied up in stock or the capital market. No. Rather, it was because the title of the book echoes the agenda and grand design of Pope John Paul II, as was revealed in the book The Keys of the Blood by the Jesuit Malachi Martin. As we read earlier, in July 2009, USA Today ran the headline, Pope Calls for God-Centered Global Economy. The opening paragraph of the article read, Pope Benedict XVI today called for reforming the United Nations and establishing a true world political authority with real teeth to manage the global economy with God-centered ethics. The Pope says such an authority is urgently needed to end the current worldwide financial crisis. I repeat this because it is most important. What is the Pope's God-centered idea of how to end the current world financial crisis? According to one of his U.S. spokesmen, Thomas Rees, a Jesuit priest at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., it is through the redistribution of wealth, not something people like to talk about in the USA, said Rees. And if the Catholic right is against the redistribution of wealth, they're against the Pope, Rees added bluntly. That's it. So who in the American is big enough on the redistribution of wealth? Barack Obama. Malachi Martin explained that the Pope is the serene and confident servant of the grand design, pages 47 and 50, or through 50. What is the grand design? Martin says it is heaven's agenda. In fact, he called it the grand design of God for the New World Order. So we have it from good authority that the Pope, the Vatican, the Roman Catholic hierarchy, is the power behind the push for a new world order. The grand design involves economic control, who can buy or sell, religious control concerning worship, and political control, socialist in its early stages, but later fascism. I say more on this. Is my thing right? Yeah, okay. I'm sorry, guys. I had to look at something. I hate it when I get my eyes off the word because I can't find where I was at. All right here. So, who in America is big on the redistribution of wealth? I have to reread it because I can't find my spot. Forgive me. Barack Obama. Malachi Martin explained that the Pope is the serene and confident servant of the grand design, pages 47 through 50. What is the grand design? Martin says it is heaven's agenda. In fact, he called it the grand design of God for the New World Order. So we have it from good authority that the Pope, the Vatican, the Roman Catholic hierarchy is the power behind the push for a New World Order. The grand design involves economic control, who can buy or sell, religious control concerning worship, and political control, socialistic in its early stages, but later fascist. I say more on this later on in the chapter titled Creeping Totalitarianism, the Grand Design Exposed. In the first volume to this book, I quoted Council on Foreign Relations, CFR, President Les Gillib, telling Charlie Rose of PBS that the New World Order was already here and that, willing or not, ready or not, we are all involved. What is curious most about this expression is that the Jesuit Malachi Martin used an almost identical phrase in his best-selling book, The Keys of the Blood. We have read the statement before, but it bears repeating. Willing or not, ready or not, we are all involved in an all-out, no-holds-barred, three-way global competition. The competition is about who will establish the first one-world system of government. It is about who will hold and wield the dual power of authority and control over each of us as individuals and over all of us together as a community, over the entire 6 billion people expected to inhabit the earth in the third millennium. No one can be exempted from its effects. No sector of our lives will remain untouched. And then see Revelation chapter 13, 16, and 17. In that competition, now well underway. Now see Revelation chapter 13, 16 through 17. On page 341 of the same book, Martin writes that this one world government will be dominated by an international bureaucracy which controls and directs every citizen and every nation for the good of all. He says it's a winner-take-all race for world dominion. Reader, these are the words of a Roman Catholic Jesuit professor of the highest rank, a man who was a close confidant and advisor to 3 popes of recent memory. In April 2009, an official announcement was made that we are on the threshold of the New World Order. Read it from the mouth of British Prime Minister Gordon Brown. Our message is clear and certain. We believe that in this new global age, our prosperity is indivisible. We believe global problems require global solutions, Brown said. I think a new world order is emerging, and with it, the foundations of a new and progressive era of international cooperation, Brown continued. A year prior, in 2008, Henry Kissinger, who for many years was an integral figure in the U.S. foreign policy, holding positions in the Nixon, Ford, and Reagan administrations, told PBS interviewer Charlie Rose, there is a need for a new world order. I think that at the end of this administration, i.e. Bush's, with all its turmoil, and at the beginning of the next, Obama's, we might actually witness the creation of a new order. What is even more intriguing is that Kissinger seemed to suggest that President President Barack Obama will be the agent to officially bring in this new world order. The reception of him, Obama, is so extraordinary around the world, a new world order can be created. It's a great opportunity, Kissinger said. Now, Kissinger ought to know, as he is one of the insiders in this new world order cabal. In fact, Kissinger reported to have said that Obama was primed to create a new world order. Kissinger told CNBC's Mark Haynes, his task will be to develop an overall strategy for America in this period when, really, a new world order can be created. It's a great opportunity. It isn't just a crisis, a great opportunity. It is curious, then, that Pope Benedict XVI has invited Henry Kissinger to become his advisor or consultant. And Kissinger, did he really? I never knew that. And Kissinger accepted. A New York-based correspondent for the Italian newspaper La Stampa wrote on November 4th, 2008, that Kissinger had told this to an important member of the Italian government of the papal offer, and that a diplomatic source at the Vatican had confirmed that an important dialogue is underway between the Pope and Mr. Kissinger. But Jesuit Father Federico Lombardi denied it all, saying that it is true that Kissinger met privately with the Pope on September 28, 2008, but that the Vatican did not ask former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger to become one of Benedict's advisors. However, in the typical Jesuit fashion, Lombardi ended by saying, "Those are the only two concrete facts." The choice of words by this Jesuit is clearly intended to suck all logic out of his sentence and leave his interviewer none the wiser. As to what exactly isn't concrete is left to the listener's imagination. So, have the other facts been firmed up yet? In any event, by merely speaking to Kissinger privately, the Pope honored Kissinger's history. The CIA sponsored coup to murder President Salvador Allende in Chile, the illegal bombing of Cambodia, the 12-day Christmas bombing of Hanoi in 1972, his defense of Beijing's decision to crush the student demonstrators in Tiananmen Square, and illegal intelligence gathering on American citizens. And what is Mr. Kissinger's avowed mission? Rear Admiral Chester Ward, a member of the Council FR for 16 years, in his book Kissinger on the Couch, he wrote, "The most powerful clique in these elite groups have one objective in common. They want to bring about the surrender of the sovereignty and the national independence of the United States." So we say to all peoples and governments, let us fashion together a new world order, said Kissinger in his address before the General Assembly of the United Nations, October 1975. Yes, there will be a new world order, and it will force the United States to change its perceptions. Kissinger told reporters at the World Affairs Council press conference in 1994. So Mr. Kissinger ought to know when he says that Obama is primed to create a new world order. On pages 144 through 150, Admiral Ward wrote, "The CFR has, as a goal, submergence of U.S. sovereignty and national independence into an all-powerful one world government. This lust to surrender the sovereignty and independence of the United States is persuasive throughout most of the membership. They consider that this objective is at once so idealistic and so urgent that their end justifies any means. In the entire CFR, i.e., the Council of Foreign Relations lexicon, there is no term of revulsion carrying a meaning so deep as America First." It may surprise you, reader, to know who started this modern movement for world government. It was Pope Paul VI, who wrote a papal encyclical that called on the nations to abandon sovereignty to form a world government. And who will control this single global authority? Malachi Martin says on the front cover flap of the Keys of the Blood that it is the goal of the Pope, by which he means the papal hierarchy of the Roman Catholic Church, to establish, maintain, and control the first one world government. Reader, who does this Vatican insider say is going to establish the next one world government? The big question is why, for what purpose, and with what end in mind? Woo-hoo. Symbols of the New World Order, Satanism, ? Consider the following images and symbols for a moment. One is a drawing of the European Parliament to look like the Tower of Babel. And the other two is one, I think, what is it called? It's a satanic, 5-pointed star. And it's not a witchcraft one. The witchcraft one does not have the point pointing down, but upwards. And then off to the side, I don't know if anyone's ever seen like the Baphomet statue drawing or whatever you want to call it. Well, this is just the head with the horns, and then that thing, that phallus thing that he has in his waist area where his loins are, is on top of this little goat-looking thing there. So that's what that looks like. And then over here it says, notice the watermark image of a goat's head in this ID card, and it's the new European identity card. And yeah, there's sure enough. At first, I thought it was a woman's private. I'll be honest with you. Forgive me, Jesus. But that's what it looked to me like. But it is a goat's head because I see the other picture. Okay. The new European identity card shown above has the satanic Masonic goat of Mendez at the back. In plain view, see goat head images on previous page, which I told you what it looks like. I wish I could show. Oh, I can show you. I'm so foolish. Forgive me. Right here it is. I am so sorry, you guys. There, you could see it. So that's what I was talking about. And then this is the one that I said it kind of looks very peculiar to me. To me it does, but that's just me. Okay, when the above symbol, the pentagram, is used in black magic, it is called the sign of the cloven hoof, or the footprint of the devil. The star with 2 points upward to look like the horns of the goat's head is called the goat of Mendez, because the inverted star is the same shape as the goat's head. When the upright star turns and upper point falls to the bottom, it signifies the fall of the morning star. Did not know that. I always heard that it was witchcraft, Wicca sign or something like that. All right. And then right here is a French president, Sarkozy, makes what appears to be the same hand sign. So there's that. That's the man, Sarkozy. Okay. And then we have Obama also flashes El Diablo hand signal of goat horns. Coincidence? See him do it again later. And then there's that. There's Obama there. Okay. On September 13th, 2009, at the MTV Video Music Awards, VMAS, aired on national and international television, Jack Black, after repeatedly giving the sign of Satan, then said to his StarCast audience, "Who wants to pray to the devil with me? Who's in it with me?" Jack Black then says to his audience of Hollywood and Broadway celebrities, "Come on, let's see your horns. Come on, let me see those horns." Visualize the Diablo hand signal. "Come on, hold hands," he said. "Take the hand of the person next to you," which they did, "and bow your heads and join me in a prayer to Satan." Are you serious? Then he prayed, "Dear Dark Lord Satan, just want to say hi and ask you to grant tonight's nominees continued success in the music industry." Wow. And that was viewed by 20 million people. And here is, I don't know if you can see that fella right there. I believe that is the man, the Jack Black. And then here is crazy people doing what he said. Idiots, just idiots. Okay, according to a book by Laura Payne, the sign of 2 points up and 1 point down was called the Goat of Mendez. L. Payne, The Hierarchy of Hell, 1972, page 118. Mr. Bush also gives the same sign, "I love you." Yeah, because they say that in sign language, that's "I love you." Again, Barack Obama gives the same sign, but this time with both hands. Is this just "I love you" in sign language? Kind of strange. Note 2 points up, 1 point down. The 2 sets of middle fingers on each hand are together as one. And then here we go. There's the Bush man, and then there's the Obama man right there. Okay, the rock band Forsaken, the lead singer, also uses both hands. "I love you." I don't think so. And then there's that feller. And it says, "Well, what do we make of all that, reader? Is this a natural hand signal one would make when greeting a crowd in full view of the world's media and television stations? Or is it a deliberate signal to those with similar allegiances to identify the singular as one of them?" Yeah. A signaler, not singular. Signaler? To identify the signaler, the one that's doing the sign, as one of them. According to the book of Cults and Personality, the satanic sign of recognition is the horned hand, fist raised. So maybe they are all just saying "I love you" in sign language, but then maybe not. Incidentally, throwing the horns was popularized by Ronnie James Dio of the rock band Black Sabbath, when Dio's Italian Catholic grandmother taught him the corna sign, drawing on another much older tradition. And then here we go. Here we got that right there is, I believe, the Anton LaVey. That's his daughter there, I believe. And then there's that man scared me. Yeah, that's Benedict. Okay, chapter 7. Creeping totalitarianism, the grand design exposed. Grand design of God for the New World Order, and that Pope was the serene and confident servant of the grand design. Genesis chapter 11, 7 through 9. The Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. Now consider and examine carefully the following photographs and paintings, and I will show you this too. It's right there. Let's see. I want you to see that. Right there, there's one. And then right next to it is this right here. Let's do it again. Yeah, pretty much looks the same. It says, above, on the left is the painting of the Tower of Babel by Pieter Bruegel the Elder, a Flemish Northern Renaissance painter, done in 1563. Wow. Next to it is the Tower of the Louise West building, shown in the real photograph on the right. Wow. Although it looks unfinished, it was actually designed with the express purpose of resembling the unfinished Tower of Babel, as depicted in Bruegel's painting on the left. Do you get the picture? Yes, we do. Here's another one. I see. You see that? The Tower of Babel, and then the European building. Okay. On the right is a poster produced by the European Union, symbolically depicting their mission. It combines the 12 stars of the EU flag with the rebuilding of the Tower of Babel, with the motto, Europe, many tongues, one voice. Oh, well, that's like... Compare the similarities between the Tower of Babel of ancient times, as depicted in Bruegel's painting on the left, and the poster produced by the European Union. Note also that the stars are shown as inverted pentagrams. Oh, I didn't ever notice that. In the shape of the goat's head. Oh my goodness, it is a well-known occulted symbol for Satan. They know exactly what they're up to. You see this? Look at that. He is so right. Now I understand what he's saying to us. I didn't understand that at first, but now I do. The bottom part would be the beard of the goat. The two top parts would be the horns, and the other two would be the ears. How crazy is that? Huh. I never realized that. Now read Genesis chapter 11, 7 through 9 again, and see how the EU has sought to reverse God's law, God's word. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. Now go back and reread the words of Louise West building, and right here, and it says, Europe, many tongues, one voice. Yeah, that is not right. I tell you. Europe, many tongues, one voice. The European Union is clearly saying symbolically that their goal is the reversal of the act of God in separating the nations. And even though it can't make the world have one tongue, it seeks to make the world speak with one voice. But who, reader, do you think might be behind it all? What is the EU in honor of? What was Europe before the EU? It was a collection of nations from the decayed Roman Empire. The very nations that had been mere vassals of the Roman Catholic Church. See the picture taken below on the signing of the European Union Constitution. Here it is. And look at that. Look at that huge. You see how big that thing is right there? That is crazy. And that's the picture showing the signing of the new EU Constitution in the Apartamento dia Conservatory. It was signed on Capitoline Hill, Rome, October 29th, 2004, before and under the bronze statue of Pope Innocent. On 5th October 1978, President Carter signed two little but significant international treaties at the UN, which effectively abolished the rights of Americans to own private property. The true treaties are United Nations Covenants on Civil and Political Rights and the United Nations Covenants on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. All that is now required for these two treaties to come into effect is for the 2/3 of the U.S. Senate to ratify them. This will automatically give the UN the right to abolish private property rights. How could that be possible in a fiercely free and democratic country like the U.S.? The thinking reader might ask. Simple. The U.S. Constitution provides that treaties are the highest source of law in the land. Why would the U.S. president ever sign such treaties? President Jimmy Carter said in 1976, we must replace balance of power politics with world under politics. Power politics with world under power politics. Or world order politics. I said that totally wrong, so let me re-say that. We must replace balance of power politics with world order politics. That's what he said. Former U.S. President George Bush Sr. said, it is the sacred principles enshrined in the UN Charter to which we will henceforth pledge our allegiance. George Herbert Walker Bush, speech at the UN, February 1st, 1992. And that were the principles to which President George Bush Sr. pledged his allegiance. And what is wrong with my eyeballs today in my mouth? And what were the principles to which President Bush Sr. pledged his allegiance? They are to be found in part in the preliminary draft of a world constitution of 1948. The age of nations must end. The governments of the nations have decided to order their separate sovereignties into one government to which they surrender their arms. Gorbachev was also part of this agenda. When Mikhail Gorbachev resigned as the president of the Soviet Union in 1991, handing over the baton in his part of the plan, he wrote a letter to the Norwegian Prime Minister Gro Harlem Brundtland, in which he expressed hope that she would do her best to carry on the work that has started in the latter years for a new world order. In the same year that Mikhail Gorbachev resigned, President George Bush Sr. told the world, it is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in a common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind, peace and security, freedom, and the rule of law. I've heard him say this. I don't know how many times I've seen that played over and over. But we shall shortly see that this movement for a new world order and a new economic order, a world political authority, call it what you will, affected by means of what the internationalists call globalization, is merely a cover for something more sinister. And it is by creating, or rather orchestrating desperate times, that the new world globalists will have their big idea. Chapter 8. Desperate times. The world economy is becoming single entity outside of which no state can develop. Malachi Martin, The Keys of This Blood, page 421. Our model really never changed. We've said very consistently that our business model remained the same. Goldman Sachs, Chief Financial Officer, July 14th, 2009. As goes America, so goes the world, a song. The leap of faith over the precipice. And this is a little picture of that leap of faith right there. These are desperate, momentous times, more momentous than that of the advent of Ignatius Loyola or those of Martin Luther. The scenes are shifting in the great theater of the world, and the final act is being played out on the American stage. Change is in the air. Momentous events are unfolding. All the apocalyptic visions are being realized. Men and women are becoming once more to awake to matters of infinite and practical importance. The issues, they are visible to those who have eyes and will come into even sharper focus in the pages of this book. We are in the times of the greatest recession to sweep the world and to shake up all nations, and the worst is yet to come. Warren Buffett has said that the U.S. economy has fallen off a cliff, and because the infected U.S. securities that insured the doggy bank loans and mortgages were traded worldwide, other banks and financial organizations across the world were affected, and the economy of one country, Iceland, even collapsed. Imagine that on October 26, 2008, the entire economy of a wealthy Western European nation officially collapsed in 1 week. Michael Lewis, a New York Times contributor, wrote in Vanity Fair, Iceland's currency, the krona, is kaput. Its debt is 850% of GDP. Its people are hoarding food and cash and blowing up their new Range Rovers for the insurance. Even the fast food chain McDonald's is out of business in Iceland. On October 27, 2009, CBC Radio Canada reported that the last 3 McDonald's outlets closed for business in October, blaming the country's economic decline and falling currency, the latter of which has lost almost 70% of its value since October 26, 2008. Meltdown. January 11, 2008. The financial and mortgage lending giant Countrywide Financial finds itself in serious trouble. Financial freefall. To avoid a complete crash in its stock value, Bank of America agrees to buy out Countrywide. 2 months later, on March 16, 2008, the unthinkable happens in America. Bear Stearns collapses. JP Morgan Chase buys up the 85-year-old investment bank at a bargain basement price with a federal government loan, the American people's money, to the tune of $30 billion. In the vain attempt to stop the financial meltdown, the U.S. government poured $306 billion into the bank Citigroup after a bailout organized at midnight from the previous day. The welfare bailout was a failure. Yet, on November 24th, Bloomberg News reported that after the $306 billion bailout of the U.S. bank Citicorp, the U.S. government had committed itself to providing a further $7.76 trillion. Did it really say that? Had committed itself to providing the further $7.76 trillion to selected private financial institutions and banks, an amount equivalent to half the gross domestic product, GDP, or America, roughly $24,000 for every man, woman, and child in the USA. Wow. It was not a full 24 hours before the U.S. Treasury announced that a further $800 billion was being given away to support 2 other U.S. mortgage companies with names that sound like they were borrowed from a cartoon, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So that is $306 billion plus $7.76 trillion and another $800 billion in less than 3 months poured into a financial black hole. I asked the question, after giving all this money, more than half the GDP of the USA is going to bail out more than half the GDP of the USA. Who is going to bail out the United States of America? We're not bailed out. We're never going to get out of this debt. The worst is before us. Despite the massive government bailouts, stock markets in America and around the world still continue to tumble, and an estimate $25 to $30 trillion was wiped off the value of shares in less than 6 months. Over 38% of the share value in major companies had been erased. General Motors, once the most powerful industrial giant in the world, was forced into declaring bankruptcy. What's next? We are told that 50 to 100 million jobs will disappear across the world. As a result, the United Nations has warned of the real possibility of spreading violence and anarchy, global dislocations, hunger, and disease. Economic instability is now 16, or is it MI6? I think it's MI6, as more of a danger to our world than terrorism. The threat to world security is even more severe because it has come in the wake of a global food shortage, of which many are yet unaware. CBC News World, 5th April 2009, Dr. Ian Kerr, a British security expert, warned, the world is underestimating the effect of the danger to come due to the current economic downturn. Tim Lang in London, England, is an advisor to the WHO. Farming is being very badly hit by the global financial meltdown, and I can't see any end to that. Brian Stuart, in a CBS News report from London, started grimly. The danger facing the New World Order includes the potential collapse of nation states and the starvation of millions. The once wealthy nation of Iceland has already collapsed, and Greece and Spain are next in line. That's crazy. Many experienced financial analysts are saying that they have never seen conditions as desperate as they are right now. You can't open a newspaper or turn on the television these days without hearing about the economy, the market, bankruptcy, job losses, and recession. It is a scary, depressing time filled with doom and gloom. What's happening with the economy? Why is this all happening now? Is this just all chance and accident brought about by greedy bankers, or is there something more to all this than meets the eye? And then chapter 9. America on its knees. Mercy, mercy, please. Our economy is facing a moment of great challenge. We're in the midst of a serious financial crisis, George W. Bush admitted on September 24, 2008. The evidence would appear to suggest that the recent financial crisis was not an accident or just the result of the reckless greed of bankers, but rather that it was engineered, orchestrated in the full glare of the U.S. Treasury and the Federal Reserve, and with the blessings of the last U.S. president. And it would also appear that nothing has changed with President Obama coming to office. In fact, Obama's choice of Tim Geithner and Hank Paulson is not only bad for America, but is confirmation of the old guard and that it is business as usual. And it raises major questions about his judgment or lack of. It reveals a lack of commitment to real change and a tendency to sanction lawless in leadership. Why and how dare I say such a thing? I will quote from a PBS interview of William K. Black by TV newscaster Bill Moyers on April 3rd, 2009, which I hope will answer the objection. Bill Moyers, after commenting on the fact that the financial industry had brought the U.S. economy to its knees, and asked Mr. Black, how did they get away with it, meaning the bankers? Now, William K. Black is the former senior regulator who cracked down on banks during the savings and loans crisis of 1980s. And in his interview, he offered this analysis of what went wrong and why. Bill Moyers, welcome to the Journal. The man you're about to meet wrote a book. It was based upon his experience as a tough regulator during one of the darkest chapters in our financial history, the savings and loan scandal in the late 1980s. William K. Black, to change the bankers, Paulson, Geithner, etc., would destroy the cover-up. Bill Moyer, to hear you say this is unusual because you supported Barack Obama during the campaign, but you're seeming disillusioned now. William K. Black, well, certainly I am. First, the policies are substantively bad. Second, they completely lack integrity. Visualize, he says Obama's policies are not only bad, but lack integrity. Third, they violate the rule of law. This is being done just like Secretary Paulson did it, in violation of the law. We adopted a law after the savings and loan crisis called the Prompt Corrective Action Law, and it requires them to close these institutions, and they, Obama, Paulson, and Geithner, are refusing to obey the law. Bill Moyers. In other words, they could have closed these banks without nationalizing them. William K. Black. What we're doing, both administrations, the Bush administration and now the Obama administration, kept secret from us what was being done with AIG. AIG was being used secretly to bail out favored banks like UBS and like Goldman Sachs. Secretary Paulson's firm that he had come from being CEO. Goldman Sachs, got the largest amount of the bailout money, $12.9 billion. And they didn't want us to know that. But where, i.e., when, Congress said, we will not give you a single penny more unless we know who received the money. And when he, visualized Paulson, was Treasury Secretary, Paulson created a recommendation group to tell the Treasury what they ought to do with AIG. And he, Paulson, the former CEO of Goldman, put Goldman Sachs on it. And even though he had just been CEO of Goldman Sachs before becoming Treasury Secretary, now, at one time in American history, that would be a scandal of such proportions it wouldn't be allowed in civilized society. Reader, this reveals a massive conflict of interest with Mr. Paulson, a conflict that Obama was fully aware of. The interview continued. Bill Moyers. So you're saying that people in power, political power, and financial power act in concert when their own behinds are in the ringer, right? William K. Black. That's right. Bill Moyer. This wound that you say has been inflicted on the American life happened because of the misconduct of a relatively few, very well heeled people, right? William K. Black. Their ideology swept away regulation. Regulation means that cheaters don't prosper. So instead of being bad for capitalism, it's what saves capitalism. And you need regulation and law enforcement to be able to do this. The tragedy of this crisis is it didn't need to happen at all. Wow. Now recall who William K. Black is. He is the former senior regulator who cracked down on banks during the savings and loan crisis in the 1980s. So, what does the above interview tell us? That nothing has changed under Mr. Obama except the level of intelligence of the residents in the White House. In fact, the new chief of the White House, Obama, has reappointed a chairman of the Federal Reserve, Ben Shalom Bernanke, the man who made the $8 trillion error as Federal Reserve Chairman under President Bush Jr. He failed to spot and stop an avoidable economic meltdown. Wow, that is insane. Why should we expect change when Mr. Obama has reappointed the same men who oversaw the financial collapse under Mr. Bush? Obama's promise of change now seems rather vacuous. Larry Summers and Obama's principal financial advisor and Timothy Geffner is Obama's new Secretary of the U.S. Treasury until January 26, 2009. He was the president of the Federal Reserve. Both of these men are former Wall Street bankers. These are the very people who were responsible for creating the financial mess in the first place. Didn't Obama say the American people would be voting for change? But such is the audacity of deceit. Nothing has changed. The Wall Street Old Boys Club are still rummaging through the Treasury like the proverbial foxes in charge of the hen house. Reader, Obama is not the hope of America. The appointment of Summers and Geffner by Obama is like letting two cats loose in a catnip factory. As to Obama's appointment of Bernanke and Paulson to his financial cabinet, New York Attorney General Andrew Cuomo, in a letter to Congress dated April 23rd, 2009, mentioned Bernanke along with former Treasury Secretary Henry Paulson, Merritt Hank Paulson Jr., in allegations of fraud concerning the acquisition of Merrill Lynch by Bank of America after Merrill went belly up in the 2008 financial storm. Fraud, reader, fraud. And yet Obama appoints these men to save the sinking ship. There is change for you. One respected professor, Peter Morsi, has even questioned whether the United States Treasury isn't fundamentally corrupt. Who is Peter Morsi? He is a recognized expert on international economics, industrial policy, and macroeconomics. Prior to joining the University of Maryland, he served as director of the Office of Economics at the U.S. International Trade Commission during the Clinton administration. So, reader, whether it is Bush, Clinton, or Obama, it does not really matter. These men do not make policy. Howard Feynman, Newsweek's chief political correspondent and NSB, what is NSB? NBS News and analyst, wrote an article in which he said that the establishment is now worried that Barack Obama is not up to the job. My goodness. And in his PBS interview on April 13, 2009, with journalist Bill Moyers, Mr. Feynman made clear that he was speaking on behalf of the establishment and as a member of it. What is the establishment? Feynman said, the establishment in America is now comprised of three schools: the financiers on Wall Street, political elites in Washington, and media stars in the New York-Washington corridor. That is misinformation. It is the Pope who informs and directs in the same manner as the admiral gives his orders to the captain and directs the Navy. The secret government in America takes its directives from a building located in the city of Rome. U.S. presidents come and go, but the secret government remains unchanged. Obama was groomed for years in Chicago under the tutelage of a Jesuit priest while he was on the payroll of the Roman Catholic Diocese for the South Side Chicago churches. The president is skilled in giving speeches, overflowing with charisma, speaking words of soaring eloquence, but he is not the head honcho. But the powers that be know only too well that the Obama effect will soon wear off, and so they are racing to put everything in place to ensure that when the public finally wakes up from its reverie, they will have in place all that is needed to control our every activity in the minutest detail. For as Martin said, no sector of our lives will remain untouched. President Obama is a protege of the Jesuits, for whom everything is lawful if the ends is lawful, or let's read that again. That just kind of ran in together. President Obama is a protege of the Jesuits, for whom everything is lawful if the end is lawful, or if the intention is good. Obama was mentioned for many years in Chicago by such a man, Gregory Galuzzo, a Jesuit priest. One commentator summed up the Jesuit qualities thus: unscrupulous duplicity, mental reservation, amphibologia, i.e., double-sensed words, justification of the means by the ends, and many other maxims subversive of honesty and morality. And these are but the nobler traits of the Jesuits, these hellhounds that the devil hath in his kennel, those mercenary priests of Rome. The former priest and Maestro Palio Sarpi, who wrote on the history of the Council of Trent, says that when the Jesuits seek entrance into any place, they do not hesitate to make whatever promises may be demanded of them, possessing as they do the art of escape by lying with equivocation and mental reservation. As Sarpi once remarked with his usual eloquence, the Jesuit is a man of every color. He repeats the marvel of the chameleon. What has this got to do with Obama? You still don't get it, do you? A man may swear that he hath not done a thing, though he really have, is the great doctrine of the Jesuits. And according to them, it is no sin to use equivocation, visual lies, even under oath. Reader, sad to say, Mr. Obama is a choice branch for the deadly upas tree. His sudden emergence is in full bloom, was no stroke of genius or the result of mere eloquence, but years of pruning, training, and behind the scenes preparation by a power to whom he must now render recompense. Mr. Obama's promises may well prove to be a two-edged sword and with double effect, cutting both ways. You have no doubt heard the expression, sly mongoose. Why is it that Obama has surrounded himself with a Jesuit mafia? His chief writer, John Farveru, is Jesuit trained. His deputy communications director, Dan Pfeiffer, is Jesuit trained. His national security advisor, General James L. Jones, former commandant of the U.S. Marine Corps, is Jesuit trained. His senior military and foreign policy advisor, Major General Ch.6-10, is Jesuit trained. His Homeland Security Director, Janet Napolitano, is Jesuit trained. His Secretary of Defense, Robert Gates, a confirmed Freemason, is also Jesuit trained. Obama's Secretary of Health and Human Services, Tom Daschle, a Freemason, is Jesuit trained. And Obama's new CIA Director, Leon Panetta, is also Jesuit trained. In the above appointees, President Obama has his own Council of Trent. Today, there are 11 Jesuit alumni in the Senate and 41 in the House of Representatives, including some of the key leaders, boast the Catholic news service CNS. On January 23, 2009, CNS wrote that the Jesuit colleges and universities have something to crow about. This is a quote. Jesuit colleges and universities have something to crow about, with a whopping 52 members of the 111th Congress, Obama's, who are alumni of their institutions. That's close to 10% of the 535 members of the current Congress, with 11 Jesuit alumni in the Senate and 41 in the House of Representatives, according to a newly released report by the Association of Jesuit Colleges and Universities. Some of these Jesuit alumni are new to Congress. A few are high-ranking members, including House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer, Democrat, I guess it is, Maryland. House Minority Leader John Bochner, Republican, Ohio. Senator Assistant Majority Leader Richard Durbin, Democrat, Illinois. And the chairman of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee and special assistants to the Speaker of the House, Representative Chris Van Hollen, Democrat, Maryland. Of the 52 alumni, 34 received graduate or professional degrees from Jesuit universities. That is insane. That is insane. Catholics are the single largest religious group in the 111th Congress, wrote Boston.com. They are slightly overrepresented in Congress compared to the general population of the United States, which is about 25% Roman Catholic. The reality is Mr. Obama's objective is no different from that of Mr. Bush. Any perceived difference being in personality and presentation only. The Jesuits you see are all foxes having different faces, but they all hang by their tails. Is President Obama a Jesuit? Reader, it would not surprise me if he were. Indeed, I desire to believe, but I dare not affirm that Mr. Obama is an agent of the Jesuits, if not one himself. For this conjecture, I would crave the reader's indulgence, but although only a conjecture at this time, I cannot but consider it as founded on a sound probability. There are many crypto-Jesuits stealing about the world under disguise. Indeed, the Jesuit general is said to be empowered to admit any candidate into the order whose acquisition might be of particular value to the order. Yea, even in some instances, one who himself may not be of the society. See Declaration A and Declaration B of the Constitution of the Jesuits. Thus, the Jesuit order, according to page 402 of their own constitution, is permitted to secretly recruit or secretly obtain the ascension of any person it considers valuable. Indeed, Indeed, the Jesuit general is said to be empowered to admit any candidate into the order whose acquisition might be of particular value to the order, yea, even in some instances, one who himself may not be of the society. And that is Declaration A and Declaration B, Constitution of the Jesuits, page 402. Thus, the Jesuit order, according to page 402 of their own constitution, is permitted to secretly recruit or secretly obtain the ascension of any person it considers valuable. Visualize a clandestine grade of membership comprising not merely professed Jesuits, but anyone who may be under probation with the intention of ultimately living or dying in the society, and of being admitted someday to one or other of its grades, but exempted from the requirement to display any overt signs of membership. That is crazy. There are still more interesting, if not curious, facts surrounding President Obama. In February 2008, Obama was endorsed by white terrorist racist group the Ku Klux Klan, as reported in the UK's Daily Squib newspaper. Imperial wizard Ronald Edwards and his KKK members supported Barack Obama in a rally in Tennessee. Some might say the Klan weren't really voting for Obama as much as against Hillary, because the banners they carried said anything is better than Hillary. But wait, if anything is better than Hillary, why doesn't the banner say vote McCain, Palin, or Obama? Why just vote Obama? The Ku Klux Klan is, of course, a Masonic organization, and rumor has it that Mr. Obama is a high-ranking Freemason, either a Prince Hall Freemason or a member of the Martinist order. And as if to prove the rumor true, on Tuesday, January 20th, 2009, the Masonic Lodge, William R. Singleton Hope Lebanon, Lodge number 7 of the District of Columbia, hosted what is called the first ever Masonic inaugural ball in honor of President Barack Obama. The ball was held on the inauguration day, 8 p.m. at Stars Bistro, 2120 P Street, Northwest, Washington, D.C. Mr. Obama did not attend, of course, as that was his inauguration day as president. Of course, claims that Mr. Obama is a Freemason are only rumors. Nevertheless, his appearance from nowhere, his surprising elevation at the 2004 Democratic Convention to the front of the U.S. national politics, not to mention his subsequent nomination over Hillary to run for the presidency, seems to defy mere coincidence and is simply inexplicable. Here is another noteworthy fact. In May 2008, Senator Barack Obama's candidacy for the Democratic presidential nomination received the wholehearted backing of communist dictator Fidel Castro. Castro said Mr. Obama was the most powerful progressive candidate to the U.S. presidency. Isn't that crazy? First, the Ku Klux Klan, then the Freemasons, and now Jesuit-trained Fidel Castro. Reader, seriously, can anything good come out of such endorsements? Yeah, for real. And then here is the final picture right there of that inauguration thing for Obama there. Crazy Obama. And there's that endorsement by Fidel Castro. All right. You are welcome, Hidden Eye. All right. We are done with that. So we'll pick up next time in Chapter 10, which looks like Chapter 10 is only a page and a half. Maybe I'll just go ahead and read Chapter 10 too. May as well. Chapter 10. Sugar for the villains, pain for the victims, but the winner takes it all. Forewarned is forearmed. And there will be on the earth distress of nations with perplexity, men's hearts failing them for fear and the expectation of those things which are coming on the earth. Luke chapter 21, 21 through 20. Chapter 21, 25 through 26. Never before have people been able, indeed, encouraged to buy houses through official government policy with no assets, no jobs, and little more than pennies to their names. It used to be that before giving a loan or mortgage, the banks would frisk you good to make sure you could repay the debt. Yet, under the watchful eyes of President Obama's chosen financial generals, the same men who were in charge under Bush, tens of thousands of Americans were encouraged by their government to buy 2, 3, even 4 houses with no money down, no deposits, no savings, no security, and no jobs or other assets whatsoever. It was so obvious to all in the industry that these loans were not proper, that they were actually called ninja loans. How could anyone, never mind the heads at the Federal Reserve and the U.S. Treasury, say that they did not know or could not have foreseen that this was courting disaster? Why did the Feds and the Treasury sit and watch it all happen, only acting when it was too late? In a different era, before the American public's consciousness had been dumbed down by media banality, the never-ending sports mania, and Hollywood reality shows, this would have been called engineered catastrophe. But instead, the public swallowed the media explanations and continued to put their faith in another Jesuit-trained American president. They're doing basically the same thing with all these credit card offers and stuff to people that don't have a job. Some everybody can get a credit card these days, and we're not even talking, the secured ones or anything like that. We're talking, I mean, they offer me cards, 7,000. Are you serious? You're stupid, but they're doing it in order so people will get more in debt. Purposely. They're doing it on purpose. It's crazy. Not too long ago, it used to be the case not too long ago that the U.S. Congress would argue over every penny they had to spend on essential services and programs. Now they have passed 2, or is it 3, separate bills into law for $8.5 trillion, representing 60% of the U.S. gross domestic product. If the U.S. did not have the money 2 years ago, where did this $8.5 trillion come from? America does not have this money. A bankrupt government has replaced the laws of economics to bail out the corrupt banks. By means of several handouts said to be loans, the U.S. government poured trillions of dollars into selected U.S. banks and other financial institutions, the black hole of financial no returns. Jim Rogers, one of the world's foremost international investors, declared that most big U.S. banks are totally bankrupt. But what does the U.S. government care? After all, it now owns the banks. Those banks that were of no use to the secret government that rules the White House, like Washington Mutual, for example, were closed by the Federal Office of Thrift Supervision because they were considered to be unsound, according to the regulator, and so left out in the cold. As the Sunday Times commented, Washington Mutual, or WAMU, as the bank become known, has survived 2 world wars and the Great Depression to become the largest savings and loan firm in America, with 2,200 branches, 43,000 employees, and $188 billion on deposit. And recent events have leveled the financial giant. Reader, do you see what has happened here? This bank was too big to fail, but it was allowed to fail because it was the bank of the poor and the average American, unlike the Jesuit-owned Bank of America or the likes of Goldman Sachs. It seems clear on the facts before us, the federal government's response to the engineered financial crisis has been to give sugar to the villains and pain to the victims. All right, I am going to end that there. Okay, brothers and sisters, keep your eyes on Jesus and your nose in the book, which is the Word of God. And let us embed the Word of God upon the tablets of our hearts, my heart, your heart, so we will not sin against God or be deceived. I love y'all so much.